Hello families! Today we're going to learn about a habitat called desert and some of the animals that live in that habitat. Let's get started!
What have we already learned? So far, you learned about the Arctic tundra and the Arctic Ocean. Today, we will go over some characteristics of the Arctic habitat. First of all, how is the climate? How is the weather like in the Arctic tundra and the Arctic Ocean? Pause and respond. As you can tell from the pictures, the climate in Arctic tundra and Arctic Ocean, they are both cold and windy. Next, how about water? Name the sources of water in the Arctic habitat. Pause and respond. In the Arctic tundra, they get their water in the spring or summer when ice melts. So animals drink water from the melted snow. As for the Arctic Ocean, there are lots of salt water in the ocean, but animals can't drink it. Now, please think about the type of land or what is on the ground in the Arctic Ocean and Arctic tundra habitat. Pause and respond. In the winter, there's ice and frozen ground. In the summer, it's wet and muddy. In the Arctic Ocean, there are chunks of ice floating in salt water. See? How about the plants? Pause and respond. As for plants, we learned that there are moss and grasses on the tundra. Can you name some animals that live in the Arctic habitat? Pause and respond. We learned about the musk oxen, wolverines, caribou, Arctic foxes, Arctic hares, walruses, seals, and polar bears. Lastly, can you name some adaptations? Meaning, what are some characteristics of plants or animals that allow them to live in the habitat? Pause and respond. One adaptation would be that Arctic animals have heavy fur to keep them warm. Also, a lot of Arctic animals are white to blend in with their surroundings. Some animals also have special feet features, such as the wolverine or the muskox. They both have large paws to help them move across the snow and catch food. We also learned that walruses have adapted to the life in the Arctic Ocean by storing blubber under their skin. Blubber is a layer of fat that some animals have under their skin that keeps them warm. Say the word blubber. Check for understanding. What does adapted mean? Pause and respond. To adapt means to change over time to be better prepared or to be better able to do something.
This is a picture of a desert. Can you tell me what you see in this picture? You can pause the video. Now, can you tell me how it looks different from the pictures you've seen of the Arctic? Please pause the video. So, temperature found in a desert is almost exactly the opposite of that found in the Arctic. For example, the Arctic is very cold, whereas deserts are usually very hot. The Arctic is wet and muddy in the summer, whereas the desert is very dry and sandy. Okay? Do you think that the same animals that live in the Arctic live in the desert? Why or why not? Pause the video to respond. Now, it's time to make a prediction. Can you tell me how the animals that live in the desert might be different from the animals that live in the Arctic? Pause the video and respond. Deserts are located in many different regions of the world, but today we're going to hear about a particular desert that is located in the northwestern part of Mexico and the southwestern part of the United States, which is around Arizona and California. The desert located right here is called the Sonoran Desert. Say with me, Sonoran Desert. Now I think you're ready to listen to the story to find out more about the Sonoran Desert and how animals have adapted to living there. Enjoy! After nearly freezing and almost becoming a polar bear snack in the Arctic, I thought we should go somewhere where my whiskers and tail could thaw out and warm up. So I brought you to the desert. There are many deserts all over the world. You know you're in a desert when it doesn't rain very much. Many deserts can be also very hot. Because it's so hot and dry, only certain types of plants and animals can live there. Welcome to the Sonoran Desert in the southwestern part of the United States and the northwestern part of Mexico. The temperature is quite hot during the day, and it doesn't rain very much. The heat and the lack of rain make it hard for some plants and animals to live in the desert. They must all be specially adapted to live in the hot weather and survive with very little rain. How do they do it? Some plants can save and store water inside their plant parts when it does rain. Other plants grow only in shady areas near mountains or rocks. Because there are very few plants that can be used as shelter, the animals that have adapted to living in the desert often seek shelter underground and make their homes under the sand. Living underground helps them stay cool when it gets hot, and it keeps them hidden from other animals that may want to eat them for lunch. What do you see in this image? Pause the video. Ouch! What did I walk into? Aha! Here is one plant that lives in the Sonoran Desert. The saguaro cactus is the world's largest cactus. Cacti don't have leaves. They have prickly spines instead, which is exactly why it hurts so much to touch this one. The word cacti is a plural for cactus. One cactus, but many cacti. The incredible saguaro lives for up to 200 years, and in that time can grow as high as a house and can weigh as much as several cars. The most amazing thing about the saguaro is that it is a habitat in itself. That's right. Not only does it manage to live and thrive in the desert habitat, but just by being there, it provides food, shelter, and water to many different animals. Let me get my climbing gear out and some gloves to protect me from these sharp spines. And I'll meet you at the top. You already know that it hardly ever rains in the desert, but when it does, the saguaro cactus saves and stores huge quantities of water in its roots and stems. The cactus saves the extra water and uses it to survive during those times when it is very dry and does not rain. In the spring, white flowers grow on the saguaro. At night, when the desert cools down, these flowers open to show sweet nectar, which butterflies, bats, and birds feed on before the flowers close the next day, when it once again becomes very hot. In the summer, red fruit begins to grow on the saguaro. Many animals eat the fruit of the cactus. Here's an interesting bird called a Gila woodpecker. The Gila pecks holes into the soft cactus with its beak to make a nest for its eggs. The Gila woodpecker is an omnivore. An omnivore is an animal that eats plants as well as other animals. Gilas feed on cactus fruit and berries as well as insects that have invaded the saguaro. Thankfully, I brought a sandwich so I won't have to join these Gilas for a buggy lunch. It really is way too hot here for a regular rat like me to live here. I'm glad I brought my fan with me. Here the word fan means an object that is used to move air to make people or things cooler. Interestingly enough, birds like this Gila woodpecker can live in the desert habitat because their feathers help protect them from the hot desert sun by trapping cool air next to their skin. Still, most birds only go out to feed in the early morning or evening when it's cooler outside. From noon to late afternoon, many of these birds seek shelter in the holes that they have dug in a cactus or in other shady places. Here's another bird that makes its home in the saguaro cactus, the elf owl. The elf owl, the world's smallest owl, is only 5 inches long. That's just a bit bigger than one of your hands. It moves into nests that have been abandoned by Gila woodpeckers. When something is abandoned, that means that it has been left for good. The elf owl, like most owls, is nocturnal, which means that it rests during the day and wakes up at night to hunt for food. The elf owl is also a carnivore. A carnivore is an animal that eats only other animals, no plants. It uses its large eyes to hunt in the dark night for bugs that live in the desert. Most owls eat mice and, I'm sad to say, rats. But I think I'm safe from the elf owl because I'm bigger than it is. Oh look, here comes a desert cottontail rabbit, another animal that lives in the Sonoran Desert. The desert cottontail looks a little like the Arctic hare we saw in the tundra, but it has larger ears and longer back legs. What are some ways the Arctic hare has adapted to the Arctic tundra? Pause and respond. Well, The Arctic hare has smaller ears, so less of its body is exposed to the cold. Also, it has white fur to blend in, has larger, wider back feet so it can run fast in the snow. Pretty cool.
Desert cottontail rabbits are herbivores. Herbivores are animals that eat only plants, no animals.
The desert cottontail eats grass and even cacti. Smaller animals like the desert cottontail always need to watch out for larger animals in the desert that might eat them. Many animals and plants are part of a cycle called the food chain. You will learn more about the food chain in the next read aloud. Coyotes, for instance, like to eat rabbits. In fact, there's a coyote coming this way, so let's stay up here and watch it. Coyotes are found all over the United States, including the Sonoran Desert. As you can see, the coyote has a light tan colored coat to help reflect the sun's rays and to camouflage it. To camouflage something means to make it blend in with its surroundings. The color of the coyote's fur blends in with the color of the desert sand, so it is difficult for other animals to see the coyote in the desert background. Coyotes are carnivores like the elf owls. Coyotes have very good sense of smell, hearing, and vision, and they can run very fast, which means that they're excellent hunters. They're also scavengers. Scavengers are animals that eat meat and waste left by the other animals. Coyotes live in dens, which they make by burrowing into the ground. I think this one has smelled something because he's just run off. Now, I'm getting down from this cactus before another coyote comes along to make me its dinner. It seems like rats are on the menu everywhere I go. Okay. I hope you enjoyed the story because now we're going to answer some comprehension questions. I'm going to be asking 3 questions. Each time, you can pause the video, answer in a complete sentence. Let's say you're not sure of the answer. Don't worry. You can play the video again and I will reread that part, okay? Let's get started. Question 1. Were your predictions about whether desert animals are different from Arctic animals correct? Why or why not? Remember, animals adapt to their environment. For example, an Arctic hare has smaller ears, so less of its body is exposed to the cold. It has white fur to blend in and larger, wider back feet so it can run fast in the snow. Question number 2. Describe the weather and temperature of the Sonoran Desert. The temperature is quite hot during the day and it doesn't rain very much. The heat and the lack of rain make it hard for some plants and animals to live in the desert. They must all be specially adapted to live in the hot weather and survive with very little rain. How are the Arctic and the Sonoran Desert different? Well, the weather and temperature are very different. The Arctic is very cold, the Sonoran Desert is very hot. Also, the ground in the Arctic is covered with lots of ice and the desert is covered with sand. How are they the same? One way that the two habitats are similar is that the animals and plants that live in each habitat must adapt to the very difficult conditions of each habitat.
In the read aloud you heard, the coyote has a light tan colored coat to camouflage it. Say the word camouflage with me. Camouflage means to blend in with surroundings. Often the color of the object or animal is similar to the background, which makes it hard for other animals to see it. The Arctic hare's white coat serves to camouflage it in the snowy Arctic tundra. What types of things could be camouflaged in green grass? What's the word we've been talking about? Camouflage. I will describe something to you. You should decide how you can camouflage it. For example, if I say a green leaf, you could say, I could camouflage that by placing it on green grass. A white piece of paper. I could camouflage that by placing it on white floor. A black cat. I could camouflage that by placing it outside at night. An Arctic hare. I could camouflage that by placing it on a snowy surface. A yellow pencil. I could camouflage that by placing it in a vase of yellow flowers. Now, we're going to determine whether certain animals are herbivores, carnivores, or omnivores. Check for understanding. Tell me, What is an herbivore, carnivore, and an omnivore? Pause and respond. An herbivore is an animal that eats only plants. A carnivore is an animal that eats only other animals. An omnivore is an animal that eats both plants and other animals. Here's a picture of a wolverine. It eats other animals. Is it a carnivore, herbivore, or omnivore? It's a carnivore. This is a caribou. It eats grasses. Is the caribou a carnivore, herbivore, or omnivore? It's a herbivore. This is a desert cottontail rabbit. It eats plants. Is a desert cottontail rabbit a carnivore, herbivore, or omnivore? It's a herbivore. This is an elf owl. It eats other animals such as bugs and rats. Is the elf owl a carnivore, herbivore, or omnivore? An elf owl is a carnivore. This is a Gila woodpecker. It eats plants as well as other animals. Is the Gila woodpecker a carnivore, herbivore, or omnivore? It's an omnivore. This is a squirrel. It eats plants as well as other animals. Is a squirrel a carnivore, herbivore, or omnivore? It's an omnivore. Take a look at our Sonoran Desert habitat poster. Talk about the climate, water, grounds, plants, animals, and any adaptations that happen in the Sonoran Desert. Pause and respond. Turn to the next blank page in your habitat journal and write desert at the top. Now, write 1 or 2 sentences about what you learned about the desert habitat. Then draw a picture that matches your sentences. Make sure to include details. Once you're done, please take a picture and upload it to your child's dojo portfolio. Thank you.